Chairman Mao, Jamie Howe, Ho Chi Minh, Asif Din, Václav Havel, Graham Saville, No Surrender, Percy Fender, Guerilla Cricket.
Hello, welcome to Guerilla Cricket. There are certainly challenges in our national game at the moment. Test performance results have been poor. The very structure of our UK domestic game is under scrutiny from the ground floor upwards. These are all things we'll be exploring and discussing in detail on Guerilla Cricket. But in this environment of question and concern, our counties need to be making the game as accessible, attractive and effective as they can. The Cricket Supporters Association exists to represent the interests of fans to the governors of our game, and recently they've been working with the Lancashire Action Group, a passionate and vocal group of Red Rose fans who want to ensure that the voice of Lancashire fans is heard and represented by their county. Their co-founder is Ian Lomax, and he is our guest today. Ian, welcome to Guerilla Cricket.
Hi there. Hi.
So, Ian, let's just start by talking a little bit about you. Tell us a bit about yourself and how long you've followed Lancashire.
Wow. I followed Lancashire from being about the age of 4 or 5. I'm a passionate Lancashire fan. I've got an unusual job, so I had the ability to go and watch them home and away in the county championship, partly to make myself feel really young, because one of the youngest, because obviously it's a lot of retired people go with because it's played in the daytime, in the week. It's very unusual for sport, of course. So I got to know some of the players, certainly in the 90s, your Stuart Laws, Mal Loys, etc. Hung around with them. Lancashire had a very big support. When I was a member, there was a waiting queue. One of the times I was a member years ago, it was capped at 13,500, and had great fun watching them home and away. The deterioration in the club happened, certainly a lot of problems with stewards, etc. in 25 years ago. And there was a lot of outcry when the ground was turned around. Obviously, Lancashire had a lot of financial problems. They lost Test cricket. The ground was crumbling. They were very poorly run. A lot of decisions were made. Stands were taken down that had only been up 5 or 6 years. And the upshot was in 2011, when Lancashire had to play away from Old Trafford with the redevelopment. Not coincidentally, but we won the championship for the first time in 77 years, playing most of our games at Liverpool and a couple of games at Blackpool and Southport. And then when we came back, shock horror, the ground had been redeveloped, but with no thought, unfortunately for us poor members. An awful lot of facilities had been taken out. The museum had been demolished, which was a pretty disgraceful thing. The library had gone. A lot of the benefits of being a member disappeared, and you were no longer allowed to sit in the pavilion in any of the three boundaries. Well,
you're leading on there to I think, why the Lancashire Action Group came into existence. So,
yes.
For those who don't know, just tell us a little bit about how it came to be. And what it sets out to do.
Sure. Well, we started. A lot of us. I was still a member at that time. A lot of members walked out, didn't come back because of the state of the ground. And then we formed in 2014. There was a steering group that was put together by someone else I was asked to join, and 2 of our group then met with the chief exec, who was a fairly new chief exec then, Daniel Gidney, who's still the chief exec now. And also the director of cricket, who was Mike Watkinson. And they had 2 meetings. The second meeting was a lot more cordial. And from that meeting, we realised that we weren't happy with the setup of the club. And we formed the Action Group. And I was very concerned about the facilities, the members' benefits and spectators. They were breaking disability laws, etc., etc. And so we did hundreds of surveys around the ground. And that's how we started. We then wrote to the chairman and the chief exec to say, we're not happy with this. You've seen the membership as just, it's just disappearing. It was incredible how many people left the club. So many of the facilities had gone. If it was a cold day, which surprisingly often is in Manchester, And of course, we now know county cricket's played in April and September, the majority of it. So unless you got a fleece and a flask and a mug of tea with you, it was an extremely cold environment and you couldn't watch the cricket. There was a massive sight screen across the front of the pavilion, where now obviously the pavilion was behind the bowler's arm when they moved it around 90 degrees. You couldn't see the cricket. So unless you paid an extremely large premium rate for membership, and we're already then the most expensive membership in the country, by the way, including your Surreys and Middlesexes. Up north, we've only just put we've all had to pay for inside toilets recently. We've only just been allowed them. So it was extremely expensive the membership was very expensive. And the old traditional membership, which is most people now just have this 11-day offer, an awful lot of people just left. I mean, they really did just left the club.
Am I right in saying the memberships declined from something like 13,000 to somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 now? Yeah,
and they capped it at 13,500 a few years back, 20 odd years ago, and then that reduced dramatically, and then particularly after the ground rebuild. And also don't forget those members, the 4,000 or 5,000 then, were traditional members paying over £200, where now you can be a digital member, not even go to a game, and that classes you as a member. You get a vote at the AGM, etc. And also they do an 11-day membership. They got rid of the county membership, which annoyed a lot of people as well. And they stopped life membership. So a lot of the members they've got, the 4,000 or 5,000 or whatever they've got now, a lot of those won't be kind of a proper, member where you can go to any day's cricket you want. And 11-day membership is what it says on the tin.
So you got 11 days you can choose to use as and how you wish. Does that include T20s?
I think it might do now. Certainly originally it didn't, but I think it might include the T20s away from the Yorkshire game, which they really push. I mean, the T20 crowds really went down massively. They've built them back up, and I think part of the reason is since we started the fanzine 3 years ago, we run the only fanzine in county cricket, aimed at a particular club. But basically, we got a lot of our changes in. There was a threat of an SGM, a special general meeting, needed 100 members. We had over 400 names. We were on Cricinfo. We got in the newspaper, and the club did concede some of the points, but the main points where you couldn't go on the pavilion, etc., the problems were still there. They put half a library back in, like they used the old storeroom after demolishing it. They've still not put the museum back, which has been promised 4 or 5 times. There's very strong rumours, I've been told, basically, that a lot of the trophies, etc., were destroyed when the museum was demolished. I mean, it was a poor place to watch cricket. Alan Lee at the Times had Lancashire, I think, 17th out of 18th of the counties to watch a county game. It was a brand new stadium. It was built completely for the Test cricket. But remember, the honours board, you couldn't even read it. It was made on balsa wood. A decent golf club wouldn't have it in their toilet. So that got replaced. And these are one of the number of things, please open the exits, allow people in the stands. They used to close half the stands. It's a great, horrible place to watch county cricket. We'd much rather go to a nice out ground. And they promised to reduce this massive signage screen, which went across the whole of the pavilion. So if you can imagine a beautiful pavilion, you couldn't see any of the cricket if you're a normal member in your own pavilion. Probably the only pavilion in world cricket where a member couldn't see the cricket unless you paid the premium rates to go in the 3 balconies. And that was the main reason I gave up my membership in about 2016. And on from that, and then they started their own members representative group. So they basically formed on the back of our action group what's called the members representative group, but they were handpicked from the club. They weren't democratically elected.
So I know that's definitely one of the key things. So we'll definitely explore that. But based upon the pressure or actions of the Lancashire Action Group, did that have the direct impact of the county in turn creating whatever its shortcomings? And I know you feel that those are there, but it was created on the back of the pressure that the Lancashire Action Group created. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, our survey was damning. I mean, we literally surveyed, and to be fair to the old chairman, Michael Cairns, he actually let us survey the ground, and he even took a survey off me.
Right. Okay.
So we surveyed the ground saying what's wrong with the club, and then the club asked for the surveys, and we had names, addresses, emails, etc. on there. And we said, well, no, we're not giving you our surveys. And they wanted to see the surveys themselves. And there was a major meeting, the end of forum meeting in 2014, when we just got relegated. I don't know if your club's Middlesex. You mentioned Middlesex earlier. Middlesex,
it is, yes.
Had beaten us, and we got relegated.
Yeah.
At the end of 2014. So on the cricket side, it was really poor. We found out that Paul Allott was the only member of the board responsible for cricket. Mike Watkinson's one of his best mates. He's the director of cricket, protecting him. And a lot of people were annoyed with Paul Allott's involvement because he had been voted off the old committee by the members, and then he was co-opted back on by the club. And then the nominations committee had come in where members couldn't vote for who they wanted to represent them. They were just given, if there were 2 board positions, they were given 2 choices. So there's an incredible amount of unrest at the club. As I say, I got a disability charity involved because we're breaking disability laws. They were taking disability seats out for one-day internationals to sell extra tickets. It was incredible what was going on. And to be fair, the club did act on quite a few of the changes. I mean, they knew there'd be a special general meeting called and we could literally kick the whole board out. And Lancashire were desperate to get Test cricket, etc., we understand that, but not to the detriment of the members. It's a members' club. It's owned by the members at the end of the day, just like any golf club or whatever club you might be a member of. So it was, so that kind of then died down a bit. And then we started a fanzine 3 or 4 years ago.
This
and
is
the day after
not the spin. Right?
This is not the spin, the only fanzine in county cricket. And it was a tremendous success. The day after the fanzine came out, I got banned from the ground, along with a guy called Timothy St. Abba, who had been on the MRG, the Members Representative Group. He realised they weren't doing anything and walked out. 3 or 4 of our action group were on the MRG. We were trying to, it was great, okay, let's try and build bridges, etc., etc. But we had 2 or 3 guys who basically only lasted a couple of years because they just couldn't get anything done. They weren't given any power whatsoever. So I then met the club a couple of times, and the club were saying to me, well, if you're nice to us in the second fanzine, we might let you back. That was basically just because he knew I was a massive fan, and obviously being banned from your own club is not a great thing. It was obviously disappointing. But the second fanzine was probably worse than the first one. We were more critical because we weren't. And I thought, well, if I'm not going to get back in the ground, it helps sell us a lot of fanzines because the news of us being banned from the club or from Old Trafford for cricket matches. So I could still go and have a pint before I watch my beloved football team. I won't mention them at the moment. They're not doing very well.
It's the one my team beat, and no. I didn't.
Oh, well, most teams, you have to narrow that one down, I think. But so, and the fanzine has been great. And it's, we're obviously a voice for a lot of the fans. We made mistakes along the way. Maybe we've probably gone from being Corbynites now to Starmerites or whatever the word is. With more central ground. We've got the CSA involved, the Cricket Sports Association. Alan Hamza, their Lancashire rep. He's a massive Lancashire fan, and he's come involved. He's got involved a little bit with fanzine updates. I got involved with the Opposed 100 campaign with Annie. Old Annie, who you'll know, with County Cricket Matters. The Lancashire Action Group actually produced the first fanzine, the first magazine.
I did, and when I have to say, when I look at the magazine, which I have next to me here, which you kindly sent me, not the spin.
You got it. Good.
I see the sort of the format similarities. So
right. Well,
I'm guessing some of the production is done the same. Let's say, Ian, let's just take a step back. So before we come on to the magazine, not the spin, let's just so the key issues that you seem to be facing was Lancashire. So Lancashire, you put forward, I think I read 34 recommendations across a whole range of things, starting from fan representation right down to member facilities, or I won't say down to, across to member facilities, of which the club acted upon or promised to act upon 22.
Yes.
So that would suggest that there was some listening going on.
I think they had to listen because they knew there would be a special general meeting called. I mean, you only need 100 members at Old Trafford. I mean, Yorkshire have had their own recently, haven't they? They've been looking to call them, I think, more. And we had quadruple the numbers, without even having to try, because of the survey, and also social media was starting to get involved. I mean, our Twitter and Facebook following is really strong, very strong now. And so, they acted on that. But a a lot of the things we really wanted, like the members to be allowed in the balconies in the pavilion, which for me should be a basic right of any member. You know, at Surrey, you're allowed on virtually any balcony. Lords, you're allowed any balcony.
You
member.
are, yeah. I can vouch for that.
Members are. You know, I've been to the Oval and Lords, watch fantastic views. And the club, a lot of the problem with the MRG was when the guys who wanted to actually do something, and people were taking days off work to go to these meetings, proper fans, you know, I know a lot of them. And they were finding that they were very frustrated. And, you know, a lot of the guys left. I think there's one or two guys who still made an effort, but then they were handpicked their own people. So it's a bit like a trade union.
So the MRG is the members' representative group.
Yeah, with no power, no actual power. They're not even...
Which in theory should guide the board. However, it's one of your key concerns is that there is no fan-based election of that.
There's no accountability.
MRG
There's no democratic election. There's no membership election. I mean, it's a members' representative group, and a lot of guys says, "Well, I'm a member. They don't represent me." You know, it was started because of us in 2014, and they've tried to. They're saying that they've got more power. And I mean, in the minutes never used to come out. That I know that people that were on the MRG years ago said that wasn't a true reflection of the meeting. A lot of the meetings they had, there were more club officials there than MRG members. I mean, if you look at some of the original meetings, I mean, the club took them down off the internet. Some of the original meetings, we've got all the minutes. So, and they've literally. I mean, I think there is more of a base where you've got a problem with, say, you're not happy with the cost of tea in the pavilion, and they might try and help out with that. I'm sure they've got some good guys on there, good guys, you know, men and women on there who are trying to help the club. Or trying to help members, but there is no democratic process. I know we asked them, well, do you think you should be democratically elected? They never came back to us.
So if we were to sort of nail down some of those things that still rankle, and not just rankle, but you feel are fundamentally sort of need addressing. Yeah, one is representation.
Sorry, go on. Sorry.
One I'm assuming is representation. A second one is, I guess, transparency.
Yeah.
A third would be the fact that when things have been put forward by yourselves, including a recent survey, which we'll talk about in a minute, those have not really been addressed or listened to, or even welcomed in any capacity. And effectively, you feel, I think, that the member experience, everything from ability to view the game to facilities, is still south of what a club of Lancashire's stature should be. Would that be a fair summary of the situation?
Absolutely.
As you see at the moment?
Yeah, and what our comparison that we've done in the new fanzine is with Surrey, whose membership has gone through the roof, and they make money. They have to make money to a business as well, but there's still, it's basically run by the club still. The members still choose who's on the board. They're properly consulted. We have one forum a year, and you're like this one, but you're not allowed to talk about the facilities. You can have a forum, we can only talk about the cricket, but you're not actually allowed to talk about the members' facilities, the fact that they ripped out the ladies' stand for the red shed. Sorry, the point.
Nice.
The red shed. The fact that members can't go, you know, on any of the balconies above the pavilion. The fact that a lot of the old members' facilities have been lost. Last year, they had incredible communication problems, 5 hours to get through on the phone. Literally 5 hours. Some of the people speaking to outside the ground. Incredible problems with communication and disability issues still. People with disability problems, no one coming back. Game tickets getting cancelled because they didn't have enough stewards. They're not a well-run club, unfortunately, and certainly for a member's experience. Obviously, everyone had COVID issues, and we accept that. But some of the problems they had, refunds not being for games that were rained off. The Yorkshire T20, you know, it's supposed to be refunded in 30 days. Surrey refund immediately. I remember the 5th day of the test match that was called off a year or two back, and Surrey got their money back within 2 or 3 days. Lancashire will hang on to it for as long as they can.
This was the India test, which India are. Is this the India test you're talking about? Which, of course, India are paying us back for by playing this summer, aren't they?
Well, they are. No, that was slightly different. I'm somewhat more the Lancashire side of it, but where there was a T20 Yorkshire game, which is obviously a sellout crowd virtually, and people were not getting answered, and that's been going on for a long time. So there's certainly, we want is 2 guys at least on the board who represent the members and their view. playing games at Sedbergh, a public school in the middle of nowhere in Cumbria, a home championship or one-day game. They should be using the outgrounds. They've got 3 fantastic outgrounds.
Well, one of which is Egbert, isn't it? Which is
which they're not playing
noted as being beautiful as a fabulous ground.
Well,
the Surrey comparison is an interesting one because, I mean, one of the key things that I assume one would focus in on there is I think Surrey from 2010 went from 7,500 to 15,000 members. So they've doubled quite literally.
Oh, yeah. They've actually.
And Lancashire has gone in directly the opposite.
We've got lost members in Nottinghamshire a couple of years ago. Yeah, Nottinghamshire look after members and their membership increased. Yeah. And again, that's a test ground that have to make money. You can do both, fine. I accept Lancashire should be having rock concerts. They're in a fantastic position. Every time Manchester United play a home game, they make a tenner on the car park. Very few clubs
and hosting some of the hospitality, as I recall.
Exactly. The hospitality there is incredible. Yeah. And I accept, of course, I think they should have concerts at the ground, but then they should make sure that the games are played at an outground within that's a decent outground that fans can go to. Another example, a massive game the end of last year at Egbert where they moved because of a concert. They make a lot of money for a concert. They moved it last minute to Egbert. There's all sorts of shenanigans going on. They didn't build the normal little stand that they have. So you can see, so the only view virtually for the whole ground was literally ground level. They wouldn't pay for a small temporary stand, even though they're making how much for the concert to be moved there. And Liverpool were very annoyed about that, and this is a massive game. Lancashire haven't won the league, since 1934, playing any games at Old Trafford. And we've only won it once, which is, the championship in 2011 at Egbert. And we won the game. We looked like we might win the league, but then, of course, Warwickshire pipped us. Yeah. But there's no, again, the people struggling to get the tickets, and the members kind of just accepted the apathy. And unfortunately, a lot of members have left. I mean, I wish we'd started a fanzine back in 2014. Because they've lost so many members. When we started the Action Group, they've lost so many members. And so, the AGM last year had 42 people turn up. I mean, Auntie Edith, God rest her soul, her bowling club would have more members turn up at their AGM. The annual general meeting.
Crown Green bowling, I think you're talking about, not as in the cricket
Crown Green bowling. She's got to play the Waterloo. But and that's astonishing, The fact that members have given up because they can't, their voice isn't worth anything. There's no point. All they put forward, they have 4 people stand for the board. They put 4 names forward. So you can't stop them going on the board. There's no election. There's not 6 people standing for 4 positions.
So this is one of the key direct comparisons that you made. Interestingly, with Surrey. Surrey has, I don't think they call it an MRG, but they have effectively a fully member elected body that kind of provides governance over the club's management board. And
that's right.
That is freely elected. Lancashire has chosen not to do that. But nonetheless, I believe, says very clearly that it feels that MRG is doing a job, whereas fundamentally you feel it isn't.
Yeah, and it's even if they are now doing a job, which I don't agree that they are, because they're not that independent in any way. The fact is that surely in a members' own club, the members should vote for who represents them. That's fairly, I'd have thought that's a fairly stable argument. It's difficult to go against that argument. The moral side of it is, it is a members' club, so the members should have some say in the running of the club.
And to put that into context, I mean, you're not looking to have 10, 20 people. Am I right in saying that you're looking for 2 representatives to be placed upon that within the MRG who are directly elected by fans? Did I understand that right based on what I've read?
No, we'd like 2 members on the board who represent the members, but also the MRG, as long as it's democratically elected, I don't care who's voted for. We're certainly not interested in ourselves.
So it's nominated by the club, not elected by the members. So
not elected. It should be like the old committee where the people are elected. So if he's banned and you win enough votes, then you go onto the committee. And they're basically saying that we don't trust you to be able to run the club. But on the members' side of the club, it's been so badly run with so many thousands of members leaving. It's hard to argue against it. On and off the pitch, 20 odd years, I've been awful for Lancashire, really. If you look at it, they've won very little.
Well, let's come on to probably the central question, I guess. If I from my own personal perspective of being a visitor to Lancashire, and I actually went to watch Middlesex a couple of years ago. I was up north anyway. I stayed in the hotel, so I could open my windows and literally watch Middlesex fall apart from my balcony. I think staying in the hotel got me my ticket anyway, if I recall. It was all like in the sort of package I had. But I seem to recall I went in the pavilion. I don't recall I went upstairs, and it may well have been shut off. I remember, but I do remember having a pleasant lunch, and as I often do when I go to watch Middlesex at different grounds, some very nice and pleasant conversations with members there. So it was warm, it was welcoming. It was a nice place to be, apart from, as I say, watching Middlesex fall over like a pack of cards on that particular occasion. So it didn't seem like I didn't have the impression as a visitor of an institution falling apart. And yet you're very clearly saying that there are fundamental issues, and that, what is it, the 13,000 members, down to 4, that's a very damning statistic. So I guess the central question there is for you in a way is, what is the reason for them? What's the main reason for them not to want to buy into the recommendations and requests that you're making, as they all seem to be fundamental to the health of an institution, which, let's say, Lancashire is? I mean, it's such an old historic club. What's the barrier, do you think, that is not breaking the doors down and moving things forward a little bit?
I think I don't think they like being told what to do. They never have been, the board or the committee at Old Trafford. The old chairman, Michael Cairns, ran it himself, similar to a Colin Graves type figure, like running everything himself. I think now they're just basically, they won't. I mean, we getting the CSA involved was a big thing for us. As you know, the Cricket Sports Association.
Well, let's talk about that, because you've been working with them. They are.
Yeah, and we thought that would help, and Alan met them, and they're just basically stonewalling us. And it's very disappointing. And we do a survey with them. 98% of people think that there should be democratic representation on the boards and committees at Old Trafford. They've said to us that they've never found anybody who wants to stand on the board. When we asked them at the last AGM, well, we found 10 people who said they'd be interested. We've been doing a survey.
What was the volume of response to that survey?
All we could do was give leaflets outside the ground. They wouldn't let us do the survey in the ground. They wouldn't even let us put that flag up at an outground, which was quite funny. But they wouldn't let us do the survey in the ground, which they did 6-7 years ago, which is very disappointing, particularly with having the CSA behind us. And as I say, we've moved more from a left-wing organisation, you want to put it that way, to try and be more democratic. We've got a guy called Roy Kavanagh, who's done talks at Old Trafford. He's one of our editors. He was involved with the first County Cricket Matters. And, a respectable figure in the game, wrote a lot of books on Lancashire, etc. He's involved with the fanzine now. There's nothing major about the fanzine. We're way behind the team. But I think maybe partly the way we started off, they've got a problem with that. But any member who writes to the club often don't get a response. That's been known for years and years and years. You're banging your head against a brick wall. We know better than us. It's a little bit like the old mill owners. We know better. And we say, well, you've lost all these members. I mean, they did act on some of the things we asked. We're not the most expensive membership anymore. They put half a library back in. They opened most of the stands. They've now put some kind of a see-through site screen. It's not ideal, but at least you can see some of the cricket. You said you went in there at lunchtime, the food was okay. The food has been known to be appallingly bad at Old Trafford compared to other counties over the years. And I have been told it's been improved last couple of years. But where did you watch the cricket from? Because once you finish your lunch, presumably you couldn't see the cricket from being in the pavilion, unless there's a small gap where the sites.
And this is because they've gone with the kind of what I would call the airline seat principle. Is it you've got first class, business class, economy.
That's right.
As a member, and economy's downstairs and can't go upstairs, basically.
That's right. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Well, there's three balconies, and the members aren't allowed on. A traditional member isn't allowed on any of the three balconies unless you pay a premium rate into a VIP membership. They call it the Red Rose membership, and then there's a Lancaster membership. But also the fact was when they moved the ground 90 degrees and changed, basically moved it round.
Well, you had the point come in and the hotel, didn't you? Yeah. That's
right. But there's a massive sight screen across the whole of the pavilion. You couldn't watch the cricket. I think we found 6 seats one day where you could actually see the cricket from. So a traditional member can't watch the cricket in his own pavilion. It's madness. And they'd taken out the old ladies stand. A lot of the old ladies we spoke to back in 2014 were very disappointed. And it's a cold place. It's a cold, grey, miserable place for a game of county cricket at times,
There's many Lancastrians will tell you it rains more in Sydney than it does at Old Trafford, by the way. But yeah, I take it.
That's right. Yeah, that's true, actually. Well, remember when we're going to move to Wigan, apparently Wigan had a bigger rainfall and they had all the problems with the local council, etc.
Oh, okay.
But we really thought they said they'd listen to us. I said Alan met them, and obviously he's the Lancashire rep of the CSA, the Cricket Supporters Association. But no, it's not just us. I think they stonewall anyone. They said they've had no one who would stand for the board.
But you found 10 who would, and had strong credentials.
And responsible people, absolutely. And we've also we've tried to speak to the club. In the past, they spoke to us at first. We're not allowed to sell a fanzine in the ground, which is fine. But it goes ahead. They say we like having a fanzine. Well, I don't believe that for a minute. But it is difficult, and it's almost become a bit entrenched, their opinion, when they should. If any business these days that's run as a problem, they should want to see what the problem is and try and sort it out. But it's almost no. We know what's best. It's not. It's not a great experience for a lot of members, unfortunately. Being a member of the club, I'm sure there's other sides to the story, and people say it's got better. I think it has probably got slightly better. But the fact is, when they said we can't find any members to stand for the board, and the fact that they don't want it democratic, we've reproduced Daniel Gidney's response to why it's not a simple democratic process for members to get on the board or the MRG. And we produced it in full in the fanzine. And if you actually read between the lines, it's a pretty poor state for the club to be in. Basically, we don't trust you lads. We don't trust the membership to run the club, even though we've lost all these thousands of members, and we're playing home games in Durham because we've got a concert on or whatever we've done. It's really poor. It's very disappointing. And as I say, 42 people turned up at the AGM. 42. It was a decent day's weather. We're playing Yorkshire, our biggest game of the season, really. And people have just given up. And a lot of fans who go home away and they don't bother. They can't be bothered with the AGM because you can't vote on anything that's significant. You can't get any change.
So I mean, you as you said earlier, you kindly sent me a copy of Not the Spin. It's quite an interesting mix, actually, because there's parts of it that very forcibly make the points that you're making. So it has a sort of I hesitate to use the word militant, but it's certainly forthright in putting forward it's the point of view that you've been doing quite eloquently here, very eloquently here. But the other part of it is genuinely a fan magazine.
Oh, absolutely.
There's some really great stuff around the different outgrounds that have been played at, previous players. I think there was who was somebody I was looking at an article this month which was about one of the famous old players of yesteryear. I'm trying to remember who it was.
We have Paul Fitzpatrick who writes for us, ex-Guardian correspondent, and he sends us a feature every
Johnny Briggs, about Johnny Briggs and stuff like that. So
we've got Stuart Bodkin. Yeah,
it straddles an interesting line between genuine celebration of Lancashire's history and supporting the club, and whilst also carrying that sort of political aspect of pushing at the club to improve key things.
Yeah, it's obviously very political at the moment because in living memory, it's the first time that 2 resolutions have been put forward to the forthcoming AGM. So obviously that's the highlight. We've never had a winter fanzine before. Obviously, 2 years ago, we had no one at the grounds, unfortunately. But we would normally produce this fanzine in April, stroke May, for the obviously coincide with the start of the season. We brought it out early, and we've had an incredible amount of success and sales online, because we want people to be able, because the AGM will be very early into the season. It's probably the first game of the season, the first or second evening. And so we want people to basically vote, whether they agree with us or not. If they can't get there in person, try and get more than 42 people this year, hopefully. We'll try, they can vote by proxy on the resolutions that we're putting forward. And, you know, if you read the resolutions, I would have thought most cricket fans would say, or members of other clubs would go, well, yeah, what's wrong with that? That's the difference between football and cricket. We're not owned by the Glazers in America who don't care and they want a Super League or whatever. We're not owned by sport washing countries, Arab states. We're basically owned by the members. I live in Stockport. It's tough being a Manchester United fan.
Stockport County.
Yeah. Well, they don't support Stockport County, but yeah, unfortunately. But no, seriously, that's the fundamental difference, that you can do something. I know the CSA are very, you know, we've seen what's happened with the 100 and the way cricket's going. It's very important that the members who own most of the counties have a say in the running of their...
Well, just hold that thought for a second, because I wanted to sort of bring us there in a minute. I just want to make sure we've sort of reprised some of the key things there. So there was the work you've done directly with the CSA, which really kind of reprised some of those key, fundamentally was about better, more representation, elected representation unto the board and the members group. I'm sure there were other things, but that was the key thing there. And obviously the respondents to the survey were 98% endorsing that request to the club, from what I've understood. Yeah. Okay.
It's accountability as well, isn't it? It's being accountable.
It is. You've also, in the Not the Spin magazine, which has been going for how long has Not the Spin been going?
We're into our 4th year. We've had, we're now on our 10th fanzine. We reached 10. We never thought we'd get to 10.
What's its circulation?
Our circulation is around, we get about 5,000-6,000 people who read the fanzine. We sell normally around about 1,000.
So that's more people than are members.
That's right. Oh, more people than members read it. Yeah,
which is pretty interesting in itself.
No, it is well read, and it's very well critically received, which is great. Got some great reviews.
No, I'm not a Lancashire fan, and I happily put my feet up over the weekend and read it. As I say, it's that interesting mix between a clear point of view about the way the club is run.
We don't want to just be there.
Genuine fan stuff.
Yeah.
Genuine fan stuff. And then the other thing that you did in there, which I think is interesting, is you made that direct comparison with Surrey, where now the pricing is pretty similar. The discounts for lack of cricket, COVID related, were delivered in different ways, but were not dissimilar. But where Surrey scores, I think, is things like reciprocal members' rights, universal pavilion access. I mean, it is very much the people's pavilion. Sorry,
magnificent pavilion, is it?
It is.
It's so nice.
Spends a lot of time in the Lord's Pavilion, but yes, it is. Yeah. They have a thriving museum. The Lancashire one closed in 2010, and obviously their membership has more than doubled. Lancashire's has fallen. So there's some very interesting, for two major Test match grounds. There's two quite different, seemingly, approaches for the way that they go about business. So that kind of leads us on to sort of a really interesting discussion area, I think, is if we start to look forward to the things that might change as a result of England's poor Test performance, red ball reset, there is, there is a feeling that franchise is in some description, and ask 10 people, and 10 people will give you 10 different views of what that might actually mean, by the way. but there is a feeling that those franchises are in some capacity going to be built around Test match grounds.
Yeah.
How do you feel that impacts, or it may not, the way that Lancashire is currently thinking, because it is undoubtedly a major Test match venue.
Well, the massive advantage Lancashire have with the 100 is they're the only county that's not paired with another county. So you have the laughable, and I'm sure Annie can eloquently describe it. I don't think she's yet gone to watch a home franchise game in South Wales for all the Somerset fans going over there. I don't think they'd even pull a tax. So we're the only club county, which is a big advantage, that we're just the only ones affiliated to the Manchester Originals. Now, I know a lot of Liverpool-based Lancashire fans don't particularly want to go and watch the Manchester Originals for obvious reasons. But that's a big advantage. We haven't got a problem with Lancashire playing 100 games. Obviously, they're going to see it as, and they'll promote it. A lot of the members don't like the way it's been promoted, in the fact that they're not treating it separately than Lancashire. And there was a letter that came out from Simon Catchich that was very quickly deleted a couple of years ago, who was the new coach of the Manchester Originals.
Yeah.
And it was basically saying Lancashire in. And a lot of the players were, before obviously the first year got postponed because of COVID, Dane Villas was the Lancashire captain, and he was going to be them playing for divisionals, etc., etc. Mm-hmm. That changed slightly. But obviously the more that they put those two together is a massive advantage for the club. And the way that the club, the members were never asked for their opinion on it, which is disappointing, I would suggest, as in a vote of, do we want this? And I'm sure there's lots of stories out there, and the way it was railroaded through all the counties, the 100. I mean, the Twitter account, I run the Opposed 100 Twitter account, as well as the Lancashire Action Group account. But the franchise cricket, if you ask them, the vast majority of any member across all 18 counties, they won't want it. They'd rather they stuck the T20 and promoted that, and the money went into that. But as I say, for Lancashire, I can completely understand why the board wants to promote it. And it is a big advantage not being tied into another county. As I say, is it the Welsh Dragons? I think they're called. I think it's Somerset. Who are the other counties down? Is it Gloucestershire and Glamorgan?
There's Southern Braves, but that's not Somerset. Then you have to go across to Welsh Fire, I think. I don't know. So if regardless of that future, you would expect county cricket clubs to want to have a healthy membership base and a healthy, enjoyable, effective member experience, regardless of whether they're a test match ground or not.
Well, I'm going to have to kind of censure it with that. I don't think Lancashire care about how many members they've got. They don't write to the members who have left. Never wrote to me when I left. They're not interested. I think it suits them not to have members. They'd rather have season ticket holders. The majority of the money that the club make is nothing to do with cricket. Obviously, the concerts, as I said, mentioned car parking, the hospitality for Manchester United games. And I had a meeting with them over a business I had years ago. They didn't realise how big a Lancs fan I was. And they basically said, well, the members, but they even bring their own flask and sandwiches. They don't spend money behind the bar, etc., etc. So the members are treated. This was said to me by a number of people for years, and I said, well, I'm sure they do. They don't want members. They really don't want members. They're an irritant. The fact that they're playing home games away from Old Trafford, they'll put the concert first. And if Manchester United were having the Rolling Stones, they'd make sure that they weren't playing when there might be an FA Cup game at home to Liverpool. Well, Lancashire will just put on the concert and move the game. So they had a T20 quarter-final where they played at home playing Durham. So Durham played Essex. Sorry, Lancashire played Essex at Durham. It was a home T20. They hadn't made sure that whenever the ground was available, that the first and foremost was for the cricket. And at the end of the day, as I keep going back to, it's a cricket club owned by the members. So then, they're saying they're prioritising the members now, but there was very scant notice of that. The MRG as well had a meeting cancelled at short notice because of all the problems we're having last year. We said we'll deal with it. There's no accountability there. So I think, as I say, the members are seen as an irritant by the board at Lancashire, which is a massive shame, obviously. And that comes across. I was a season ticket holder at Manchester United. If I don't renew my season ticket, I get emails, texts, phone calls. You know it.
Yeah, you're paying more. I might point out quite a lot.
The best customers you've got, the ones already out there. So Lancashire's never made a real effort to try and sort that. And I think that, whether it'll end up being season tickets, who knows what the future county cricket is, unfortunately. It's in a depressing place at the moment.
Well, it is. And this is why I think this conversation is timely. And one of the things that we as Guerilla Cricket want to do together with the CSA is to talk to as many county chairmen and county CEOs as we can, because we do. You've cited Surrey, who do so many good things in so many ways. I see Middlesex doing a lot in good ways. I know they've had some bad PR recently,
yes,
but I think that was through rather clumsy presentation, not lack of good things that they're actually doing. And if indeed membership and season tickets are really pretty much the same thing. So I have to speak up on behalf of Middlesex, who, regardless of what people think, are not a test match ground. We happen to be tenants at one. That's different, right. A very different situation. But I have to say, put my hand up for Middlesex and say, as a member, I do feel valued by my association with them. Ian, if you could pick one thing from the things we've talked about with Lancashire, what would that be? Would that be the members' representation to create a better supporter member experience, and doing that in partnership? Would that be fair? That's the one big win for you, and still is. Yeah.
We're not trying to, we're not anarchists here. We just want what's a democratic right of the members, and then hopefully moving forward we get some representation of members on the board. So some of the decisions they've made over the last few years, which have been disastrous, they then have to, you hopefully got two strong-minded people on the board who say, hang on a second, that's not fair on the membership. If you're doing that, you're taking those tickets out there, you're doing this. Of course. And Michael Cairns in 2014 said to me, we took the eye off the ball, we admit that, with a lot of the changes they made, because there was no proper consultation with members then. And that's the thing. The nominations committee, which I know the ECB, like in a lot of counties, you've got to trust that the members will be represented by people. There are people out there who are intelligent businessmen who can be county fans as well. It's not one or the other. You can be both.
No, I don't.
You've got to be able to see that the club's got to make money, otherwise it goes bankrupt. But you've also got to see the opinion of the actual members who own the club. And that's the one thing that I want to change. And hopefully, with a forthcoming AGM, we can start on that.
CSA, let's reprise the fact that 98% of respondents to that survey done in partnership with the CSA endorsed that request. So whatever the
that's what they got in touch. They saw our campaign, you see. They saw our campaign, and it mirrors basically what they want across all 18 counties.
Yeah, and whatever the recalcitrance or resistance from the club, no one listening to this interview, I think, would doubt the sincerity and the passion and of the request. So we're glad we've given you the opportunity to convey that, which I think you've done quite marvellously, actually. So, Ian Lomax, it's been fantastic to chat to you, to learn about something I've heard something about and now know a lot more about, and hopefully all of our listeners do. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for your time, Tony. Really enjoyed it myself. Thank you.
Revolutionary cricket commentary.